The train was already moving when Narendra Modi stepped into the dimly lit compartment. The late evening air outside was cool, but inside the train, there was a warm hum of quiet conversations and the soft rattle of wheels on the tracks. He was tired from a long day of meetings, but he had chosen the train instead of a car because he wanted a few hours to think. He did not expect that tonight would change something far beyond his own plans. As he walked down the narrow aisle, his eyes fell on a man sitting alone by the window. The man had a calm face, almost too calm for someone on a crowded train. His gaze was fixed on the passing darkness outside, as if searching for something that could not be seen. A small, worn laptop bag rested on the seat next to him. He looked familiar, but Modi could not immediately place him. There was only one empty seat left, and it was right across from the man. Modi walked over and asked softly if he could sit. The man smiled politely and moved his bag aside. Modi took the seat, and for a few moments they both remained silent. The train swayed gently, and a faint smell of chai drifted in from the pantry car. Finally, the man turned slightly and said, "Long day." His voice was soft, but carried a tone of genuine curiosity. Modi nodded and returned the question. The man gave a small laugh and said, "Yes, long day, long month, maybe long year." There was a quiet weight in his words. Modi studied him closely now. He had seen that face before, not in person, but in news articles and tech magazines. "You are Sundar Pichai, aren't you?" Modi asked. The man nodded with a modest smile. "Yes, I am, Sundar." He spoke as if he were introducing himself to a stranger at a small village gathering, not as the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world. What struck Modi was not the recognition of a famous person, but the simplicity in his tone. Sundar did not lean back with pride or speak in grand terms. He spoke like someone who had no interest in being treated differently. "What brings you here on a late train?" Modi asked, curious. Sundar's smile faded a little. "Sometimes, I travel without a plan. It reminds me of the days when I was a student in India, moving from one small town to another. I meet people, I listen to their stories. It keeps me grounded." There was a brief pause. Modi could feel that this was more than just a casual train ride for Sundar. Something else was behind his presence here. After a while, Sundar spoke again, this time looking out the window. "I met a boy earlier today. He was selling tea at the station. He could not have been more than 12 years old. He had bright eyes, but they were hiding pain. I asked him about school, and he told me he had stopped going because his father was sick, and his mother could not run the tea stall alone." Sundar's voice slowed, each word carrying weight. "I bought tea from him, but what stayed with me was the way he smiled when he said he hoped to go back to school someday." Modi listened without interrupting. Sundar turned back toward him. "You see, when I was a child, my family didn't have much, but I had teachers who encouraged me, parents who valued education. I wonder how many children like that boy never get the chance to use their potential." There was a silence after that, not heavy, but thoughtful. Outside the window, the lights of small towns flickered in the distance. The train passed through stretches of dark fields, where only the moonlight touched the land. Modi leaned forward. "You are right. Sometimes one conversation can open a door for change. The problem is not that we do not care. The problem is that caring alone is not enough. It must be followed by action." Sundar nodded slowly. "Yes, but action needs both will and the right path. Sometimes we are willing but lost in the noise of everything else." They spoke for a long time after that about education, about kindness, about how small actions could ripple into large changes. It did not feel like a meeting between two well-known men. It felt like two human beings trying to understand the world and their place in it. As the train moved steadily toward its next station, the mood between them shifted. This was no longer just a conversation. There was a quiet agreement, forming an unspoken belief that this meeting might lead to something neither of them had planned. When the announcement for the next stop came, the compartment was almost empty. Sundar looked at Modi and said, "I don't believe in accidents. I believe some paths cross because they are meant to." Modi smiled faintly. "Then maybe this is one of those paths." The train slowed, the wheels screeching softly against the tracks. Both men knew that this conversation was not ending here. It was only the beginning of something neither of them could fully see yet, but both could feel. And somewhere deep inside, both carried the quiet certainty that the boy selling tea at the station would not be forgotten. Ending line. This was how it began, a chance meeting, a shared thought, and the first spark of a movement that would touch countless lives. The train had reached the small station, and the night air rushed in as the doors opened. A few passengers stepped out, some stepped in, but Sundar and Modi stayed seated. Both were still thinking about the boy selling tea. After a short silence, Sundar spoke again, his voice more serious now. "I keep thinking about his face, the way he tried to look strong, even though he was just a child. We read numbers and reports, millions of children out of school, but numbers don't stay in. The heart, faces do." Modi nodded slowly. "I know. I was once one of those children who needed to work. I know the feeling of trying to dream while life keeps pulling you down." Those words surprised Sundar. He knew Modi's journey had been long and difficult, but hearing it in such a personal tone made it feel different. He saw that this was not just a political leader speaking, but a man who had walked through struggles himself. The train began moving again, passing through empty stretches of land. The rhythm of the wheels seemed to give their thoughts a strange clarity. "What if we did something together?" Sundar said suddenly. Modi looked at him, curious. Something small at first. Maybe for this boy, maybe for others like him. Modi leaned back, thinking. Small steps can grow if they are rooted well. But it must not be something that fades when the news cycle changes. It has to last. Sundar's eyes brightened. "I agree. Technology can help. I can bring resources, tools, and people who care. But we also need someone who can reach into the hearts of communities, someone they trust. You can do that." There was a pause, the kind that happens when two people realize they are thinking the same thing. Outside, the train passed a row of dim streetlights. In their glow, Sundar noticed a group of children playing cricket in a dusty field, even though it was almost midnight. They were laughing loudly, not caring about time or tiredness. "Look at them," Sundar said, pointing. "There's energy, there's talent, there's hope. It just needs a direction." Modi smiled faintly. "And sometimes, all it takes is one hand to lift someone over a wall they couldn't climb alone." But deep inside, Modi was wondering how could two men, even with power and resources, fight against years of poverty, broken systems, and forgotten promises. The conversation grew deeper as the hours passed. Sundar shared stories of villages he had visited quietly, without cameras, to see what life was really like. He spoke of a small school in rural Tamil Nadu that had one computer for the entire school, yet the children took turns with shining eyes, eager to learn. Modi shared stories of his travels to remote areas, where children walked miles just to get to a classroom, and some still had to choose between studying and working to feed their families. There was a moment when neither of them spoke. The truth was clear. They could not help everyone, but they could start somewhere. Finally, Modi broke the silence. "Tell me, Sundar, if we start this, what will it look like in 1 year?" Sundar thought carefully. "In 1 year, it will look like 100 children back in school. In 5 years, maybe 10,000. But it starts with one boy, the boy at the station." The train was now nearing another station. Through the window, they saw the glow of small shops and the silhouettes of people waiting on the platform. Modi's voice was steady when he said, "Then we start with him. No speeches, no cameras, just us." A quiet determination settled between them. This was no longer an idea. It was a decision. What neither of them knew was that one small decision, made on a quiet train ride, would soon gather a force far bigger than they imagined, and that force would test them both in ways they had not faced before. Ending line. Neither Sundar nor Modi could see the storm ahead, but they could feel the first winds of change begin to stir. The next morning, Sundar woke up in a modest guest house near the station where he had spent the night after leaving the train. Modi had continued his journey, but they had exchanged phone numbers and promised to meet again soon. Outside, the air was fresh, carrying the faint smell of chai and fried pakoras from small stalls. Sundar could not shake the image of the boy selling tea. After a quick breakfast, he decided to walk back to the station. It was early, but the platform was already busy. Vendors shouted, luggage wheels rattled, and trains roared in and out. There he was, the boy. The same thin frame, the same bright eyes. He balanced a steel kettle in one hand and small paper cups in the other, moving quickly between passengers. Sundar approached him with a gentle smile. "Do you remember me?" he asked. The boy blinked, then nodded slowly. "You bought tea yesterday," he said. "Yes," Sundar replied. "What is your name?" "Arjun," the boy said quietly. They spoke for a few minutes. Sundar learned that Arjun's father was bedridden after an accident at a construction site. His mother worked a stall with him, but they still earned barely enough to eat twice a day. School had become a distant dream. "Would you like to go back to school, Arjun?" Sundar asked. Arjun hesitated, his eyes flickering with hope and doubt at the same time. "Yes, but if I go to school, who will help my mother?" Before Sundar could answer, a loud voice cut through the air. "Arjun, come here." A middle-aged man with a harsh face was glaring at them from the stall. Arjun hurried away, but Sundar noticed the way the man's hand gripped his shoulder a little too tightly. Sundar followed them and introduced himself politely, explaining that he wanted to help Arjun continue his education. But the man, who turned out to be the stall owner, shook his head. "The boy owes me. His family owes me. If he leaves, who will work? Who will pay back the debt?" The word debt hit Sundar hard. He knew this was not just about school. Now, this was about breaking a cycle that held Arjun in place like chains. That evening, Sundar called Modi and told him everything. Modi listened quietly, then said, "This is the first roadblock. Helping Arjun will mean facing people who depend on his labor. They won't let go easily. What do we do?" Sundar asked. "We start by understanding the whole picture," Modi replied. "If we help one child, but the family still suffers, the child will be pulled back again. We must lift the family too." Over the next few days, they worked together from different cities. Modi contacted local officials he trusted, while Sundar arranged for a small group of volunteers to visit Arjun's home. They learned that the debt was real, but inflated money borrowed long ago for hospital bills, now grown large with unfair interest. Sundar was ready to pay it off quietly, but Modi cautioned him. "If we pay without changing the system, another boy will take his place in a month. We must also find a way to break the pattern." The deeper they dug, the more they saw how many children like Arjun were trapped in similar situations, working at stalls, factories, and small shops, because their families owed money they could never repay. One night, as Sundar sat in his hotel room, he stared at the notes they had collected. Names, ages, stories, dozens of them. The problem was bigger than either of them had expected, but Sundar felt something growing inside him, a fire. He remembered what he had told Modi on the train. Start with one boy, and that was what he intended to do, no matter how hard it became. Ending line. They had set out to help one child, but now they could see the shadows stretching far beyond him, and the fight ahead was going to demand more than they had planned to give. Days turned into a week, and the situation with Arjun became more complicated. Sundar had visited the boy several times, bringing food for his family and medicine for his father. He could see the gratitude in Arjun's eyes, but also the fear. The boy knew that accepting help might anger the stall owner. Meanwhile, Modi had quietly spoken with a local school principal, arranging for Arjun to be admitted mid-year without fees. Everything seemed ready until news reached them that the stall owner was warning other vendors and shopkeepers not to interfere with Arjun's work. The man's reason was simple: if one child left, others might demand the same, and his influence over their families would weaken. Sundar met Modi in person again, this time in a small government office near the station. The place smelled of paper and dust, the ceiling fan clicking lazily above them. "He's not going to let this happen," Sundar said, frustration in his voice. "I could just pay off the debt now and end it." Modi shook his head. "And next month there will be another child, then another. You cannot buy freedom for everyone. We must make him let go willingly, or make it impossible for him to hold on." That evening, they visited Arjun's home together. The small one-room house had a cracked wall and a broken window patched with cardboard. Arjun's father, thin and pale, struggled to sit up when they entered. Modi knelt beside him. "We want to help Arjun return to school," he said gently. "But we also want to help your family earn enough so you never have to borrow from that man again." The father's eyes welled up. "We tried everything, but no one hires a man who cannot stand all day." Sundar thought for a moment. "What if we help you start something from home? Maybe repairing radios, or tailoring clothes. Something small, but yours." Hope flickered in the man's face, but it was faint. They all knew that starting anything would require money and trust, and in their neighborhood, both were scarce. The next day, Modi used his network to arrange a meeting with a local cooperative group that supported small family businesses. At first, the group was hesitant. They had been cheated before by people who took help and never repaid it. But Modi spoke to them with quiet conviction. "This is not just about one family," he said. "It's about showing others that change is possible." They agreed to visit Arjun's home the next day, but just as things seemed to be moving forward, an unexpected twist struck. That evening, Sundar received a call from one of the volunteers near the station. "Sir," the voice said nervously, "the stall owner found out about the cooperative visit. He's telling everyone that Arjun's family is being used by outsiders for some political agenda. Some people are starting to believe him." Sundar felt a wave of anger, but he kept his voice calm. "Thank you. Keep me updated." When he hung up, he realized this was no longer just about money or school. It was about trust. The community around Arjun was small and tightly knit, and if the stall owner poisoned their trust, Arjun's family could become isolated and even more vulnerable. Later that night, Sundar sat in silence, thinking of the train ride when this all began. He remembered saying that caring was not enough, it had to be followed by action. Now, he was learning that action had to be clever, patient, and strong enough to face those who would fight to keep things as they were. Ending line, what they thought would be a simple act of kindness was turning into a battle for hearts and minds, and the real challenge had only just begun. The morning of the cooperative group's visit arrived, but the air in Arjun's neighborhood felt tense. People stood in small clusters, whispering. Some gave Sundar and Modi cautious nods, others looked away. Arjun's mother waited at the door, worry etched across her face. "People are saying things," she whispered. "They think you will take Arjun away to some big city, and we will never see him again." Modi stepped forward and spoke gently. "We are not here to take him away. We are here to make sure he has the choice to study and still be with his family." Before they could say more, the stall owner appeared. His voice was loud, meant for the crowd gathering around. "These men talk about school, but they do not know how we live. The boy works and earns. If he stops, his family starves. Are they going to feed all of you too?" His words stirred murmurs among the people. Some nodded in agreement, Sundar felt frustration rise, but he remembered Modi's warning. This was about trust, not force. So he took a step forward and addressed the crowd. You are right. I do not know your daily struggles the way you do, but I know this: when a child learns, the whole family rises. When I was a boy, my parents gave me the chance to study, even when it was hard. That is why I can stand here today. There was silence for a moment. The stall owner smirked, sensing hesitation in the crowd. Words will not fill empty stomachs, he said sharply. Just then, a voice came from the back. Maybe not words, but work will. Everyone turned to see a woman in her late 50s, carrying a worn leather bag. She introduced herself as Mira, leader of the local women's cooperative. I know these men, she said, pointing to Modi and Sundar. I checked their work. They have helped other families like yours. If they say they will support Arjun's family, they will. The stall owner scoffed. And you will trust strangers over your own people? Mira's voice grew firm. Sometimes our own people keep us small so they can stay big. I have seen it. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Sundar saw in their eyes that some of the stall owners' hold was breaking. The cooperative group arrived soon after, bringing samples of small business tools, sewing machines, toolkits for repairs, and a microloan plan, with no crushing interest. They explained how Arjun's father could start repairing radios from home, how his mother could take stitching orders. But the stall owner made one last attempt. And who will pay the debt that is still owed to me? Sundar looked him in the eye. I will pay what is fair, but the boy will be free. The stall owner hesitated. He knew that refusing now, in front of the entire neighborhood, would make him look unreasonable. After a long pause, he muttered, Fine, but don't come to me when they fail. The deal was done. Arjun's mother began to cry quietly. Arjun himself stood frozen, as if he could not believe the chains around him were finally gone. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Mira pulled Sundar aside. This is just one victory, she said. But people are watching. If you keep your word, they will open their hearts to you. If not, this will vanish like smoke. That night, Sundar and Modi sat in silence for a long time. The battle had been won, but the war against the larger problem was just beginning. Ending line. In freeing Arjun, they had lit a small flame, but they both knew that flames could die out. If not carefully guarded against the winds that would surely come. Within a week, the small sewing machine arrived at Arjun's home, and a wooden table was set up in the corner for radio repairs. The family was cautious at first, almost afraid the change would vanish as suddenly as it had come. But when the first paying customer arrived, a neighbor with a broken radio felt like a door had truly opened. Arjun started school the next Monday. Sundar came to see him off. The boy wore a simple uniform that had been given by the school, and he held a second-hand bag that Sundar had found in a local shop. Arjun's eyes shone with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Study well, Sundar told him softly, but never forget the people who stood by you. Word of what had happened spread through the neighborhood, and then to other parts of the town. Some people were inspired, others were skeptical. A few whispered that Sundar and Modi were only doing this for their own reputation. Mira's cooperative, however, began receiving requests from other families who wanted similar help. One father came forward with tears in his eyes, saying, If my daughter could go back to school like Arjun, I would work twice as hard. This was how the spark began to grow into a movement. Sundar and Modi set up a small plan. They would choose one child from each nearby community, help the family become self-reliant, and then secure the child's education. Each success story would encourage others, but as the plan took shape, a new challenge rose. Some local moneylenders and small business owners, who relied on cheap child labor, started to feel threatened. They saw this movement as an attack on their control. Late one evening, Sundar received a call from Mira. Her voice was tense. Someone spread rumors today, that the cooperative is being used to collect information for outside companies. They are saying we are selling people's names and addresses. Sundar felt a chill. Who is saying this? People connected to the moneylenders, she replied. They know if more families join us, they lose power. They will not let this grow without a fight. The next day, when Sundar and Modi visited a nearby village, they were met with suspicion. Doors that had been open before were now closed. Mothers held their children back, not letting them speak. Modi noticed and said quietly, "This is the bigger storm we were waiting for. They will try to make people fear us before we can reach them." Instead of retreating, they decided to hold a small public gathering in the very place the rumors had started. Meera stood beside them, and Arjun's family was there too. They told their story openly, how the debt was cleared, how the business was running, and how Arjun was now studying. The crowd listened. Some faces softened, but others stayed cold. It was clear that trust would not be built overnight this time. After the gathering, a young man from the crowd approached quietly. "I work for one of the moneylenders," he said. "But I have younger sisters. If you promise they can study without being taken away, I will tell you what they are planning next." That was when Sundar realized the battle had shifted into dangerous territory. This was no longer just about kindness. It was about confronting people who had something to lose if children were free, and those people would fight in the shadows. Ending line. The movement had begun to grow, but now it stood in the crosshairs of those who thrived on keeping others powerless, and the next steps would decide whether it would survive or fall. The young man's warning stayed in Sundar's mind all night. The moneylenders were not just whispering lies anymore, they were preparing to act. If they succeeded, the fragile trust that had been built could crumble in days. The next morning, Sundar and Modi met in a quiet tea shop away from the main market. The air smelled of strong ginger chai, and the soft clink of glasses gave them some cover from listening ears. "We can't wait for them to strike," Modi said firmly. "We must go to the people before the rumors spread any further." Sundar nodded. "But it cannot just be us speaking. It must be the families themselves. Real voices." Over the next few days, they visited every family who had been helped. Arjun's father spoke about how repairing radios from home had not only fed them but restored his dignity. Another mother told how her daughter now read stories to her every night. Each story was honest, small, and powerful. They decided to hold a gathering in the town square. This time, it would not be speeches from leaders, it would be the families speaking directly to their neighbors. Meera helped organize it, going door to door with other cooperative members to invite everyone. The day of the gathering arrived. By evening, the square was full. The moneylenders stood at the edge, their arms crossed, their eyes sharp. Arjun was the first to speak. His voice trembled at first, but then grew steady. "I still work sometimes," he said, "but now it is after school, and for my family, not for debt. I can read better every week. One day, I will teach other children." There was a quiet murmur through the crowd. Then Arjun's father stood and spoke about the day the sewing machine arrived, how it had changed their mornings, how customers now came with respect instead of pity. Family after family came forward, each with a small but real change. Finally Sundar stepped up. "We are not here to shame anyone," he said, glancing toward the moneylenders. "We are here to prove that when one child studies, the whole community becomes stronger. This is not charity, it is an investment in our own future." The crowd was silent for a moment. Then an old man from the back raised his hand. "My granddaughter works at a shop. If I bring her to you, will you help her too?" "Yes," Meera answered, before Sundar could speak. "One by one, we will help as many as we can." The tide had turned. People who had stayed silent before now stepped forward, asking questions, offering ideas. Even a few who had doubted them earlier nodded quietly. The moneylenders saw it too. Their grip was loosening. Some walked away, Others stayed, but said nothing. They had not been defeated completely, but they had been pushed back. As the sun dipped and the lamps in the square began to glow, Sundar found Arjun standing beside him. The boy was smiling, not the guarded smile of before, but a free one. "You kept your promise," Arjun said. Sundar looked at him, his heart full. "No, Arjun, you kept it. You showed up for school every day. You worked hard. You made the change possible." Later, as the crowd slowly dispersed, Modi stood beside Sundar. "This is just the beginning," he said. Sundar nodded. "Yes. The movement will grow, not because of us, but because they have seen what is possible." In the days that followed, more families came forward. The cooperative expanded its reach, and the idea of pairing education with family self-reliance began to spread beyond the town. It was still fragile, still vulnerable, but it was alive, and it had all begun with a train ride, a simple conversation, and the decision to help one boy selling tea at a station.